Okay, to prepare you for the open book exam next week, I thought we'd make an exercise together that explains a little bit the setup that I'm going to do next week, and then also how you can implement it. Don't worry if this might look complicated or if you think you would do it differently. I'm not really interested in which style that you use, more if everything will be on the page or if you understand the thinking behind it. So the assignment is going to be that I'm going to give you a screenshot, basically. So something that looks like this. This is my store, and it's a fruit and vegetable and nuts and seeds store, an online store. And I'm basically concerned only with the mobile layout. So I'm not concerned with the desktop layout here in this case. That's the assignment. So you see I have this little header here at the top, a search bar, some tabs, and then some products here, and then a copyright at the end. So immediately you see that you have really nicely logical layout that you can implement here. Next to that, you also get a document that looks like this, which is sort of like a style guide for the whole thing. So it explains which font that I'm using. Like this is the base font, 14 pixels, Vera Sans. And then it specifies some color. So this is the text color that I use. This is the color for this search border, the inactive tab text, the active tab, the background, specifically this background, product title, and so forth. So you can use your own colors if you want, but this just makes it easier to avoid having to pick your own colors. You can just implement the design you have. Okay, so that's the beginning, and then you get a starter folder that contains the images, obviously. So this is the banana and the kiwi and things like that. And then these ones will open in Visual Studio Code. So I'll switch to Visual Studio Code, open folder. And that's just enough to get you started. So basically it's an empty index.html document, apart from the style sheet links that link to external things. And this is something that you just get for free. So it's a link to Font Awesome, and it's a link to the Vera font that we're using here. And then it's also linking to main CSS, so we'll open that as well. And as you see, it's mostly empty. It's just setting box sizing, border box like we did before, and then making sure that images are always set to max width of 100%. Okay, so that's it. So how do we proceed? Well, we're going to start with index.html and then go live. And that shows us this page. So as you can see, it's quite empty here. And I'm immediately going to open the inspector tools. And because I'm only making the responsive layout, I'm going to click here on this responsive icon, move my sidebar to the right as it is now, and then maybe choose something like an iPhone 6 or something where I can actually design this. So as you can see, the rest of the page is empty. So now it's up to us to actually design that page. So switching back to Visual Studio Code, everything that goes here in between goes in this body. So I know, looking at the screenshot, it's probably something I want to have open here somewhere on the side, is I want to just go from top to bottom. So the first thing, and I'm going to quite quickly, but of course you can take your own time if you want. First thing that I want to do is make the header. So I'm just going to use a header tag, and inside of that header I have 3 elements. I have this menu element. It doesn't have to work, it's just an icon here. So I'm just going to use a link, linking to nothing, and then give that a class of header __ menu. And note that I'm using the BEM style that we talked about before. You don't have to do that, but that's a choice that I make. And then I want these bars, so I'm just going to look at the side of Font Awesome and look at the icon for this menu bar. So I'm just looking for a menu bar. It doesn't exist. Menu maybe. Oh, and this one's the one I want. So bars. Okay, cool. Note that if I copy this from Font Awesome, this FAS, as you see here, if I just paste it in, that won't work. It will show you this empty icon, and the reason is we have to remove this S here. So it's just FA-bars. Okay, so that's my first icon here. And then second thing that I want to see is the name of my store. So I'm going to give an H1, but I'm going to also add header underscore title. So double underscore title. And that's the name of my store. It's the Kiwinkle. And then lastly, it's another icon. This is this shopping icon. So let's look for shopping. And it doesn't have to be the exact icon, as long as it sort of shows what it means. It can also be this card or can be something else. In this case, I want a shopping bag. So it's probably going to be called FA shopping bag. Again, don't forget to remove the FAS. So first off, make a link. Call this header underscore bag. And then place that in, and then leave off the S here at the end. Okay, so we have our 3 icons. Now it's up to you if you want to style these first or if you want to go further with the page. Right now I'm going to style this, and I'm going to start with the HTML. So I have a font family of Vira Sans or sans serif font if that font's not available, and the font size, as I said before, was 14 pixels. So that's already in the correct font here. And then I'm going to add a little section for the header like this. And for the header, I'm going to say all the basics of the header is that we're going to use display flex, and then do justify content space between so that all the elements take up their own space. Switching back, that looks okay, except that the header is a bit weird. And this is because headers by default have a margin at the top and the bottom. So we're going to remove that. And we have named this thing header underscore title, so we can refer to it. Don't forget the dot at the front here. Margin of 0 already does a better job, and maybe set the font size to 1 rem. And do we want it bold? Yeah, sure, that works. You see that I also mentioned colors. So the base color for our thing is 676. So it's not called text, it's called color. 676. And this is a shortcut notation. You can also write 667766. This is just shorter. It's the same thing. Basically, you can copy and paste these colors. Okay. Note that these icons are blue here, and they're blue because these are actually part of a link, and links are blue. So you see here that we inherit the blue color. The WebKit link is the blue color for that icon. So if we want to use a different color, what we're going to do is going to say in the header, and there's multiple ways that you can do it. So you can say, well, a header, all the links have a certain color, or you can say, because these have names, header underscore menu, and here again, don't forget the dot in front. The color of that is going to be inherit. So we're inheriting the original color, and we do the same for header bag. So that works, right? But you can also say, if you want, header A is color inherit. So all of the links will inherit the base color. That works as well. That's up to you. And again, these things don't really matter to me. As long as you have a way to solve it, then that's fine. Okay, so we're basically done with this header. We probably want to do some margin, some fine tuning. Don't spend too much time on that. But judging from the screenshot, something like this might work or not. I don't know. Right, let's leave it like this. Then we do the next part, which is a search. And I'm trying not to do too many sneaky things. The search might be a bit sneaky. I don't know, because we use a little trick here, which is we want an input field here so that we can actually type something. And again, it doesn't have to work, but we want to type something. So, well, first off, I'm going to start with a group, right? This is my search group. This is everything that bundles this search element. And inside of there, we're going to use an input. input by default will be of type text, which is fine. We're going to give it a class like search underscore input or search text. Again, this name is for you to decide. And we're going to give it a placeholder, which is the text that shows up if you haven't typed anything, which is just search, right? So that's going to give us this little field here that we can type in. And it's kind of weird because I was expecting that I would see a border around that field, but it's not there. Maybe that's because I'm on an iPhone thingy. Not sure why that's not showing up. Because I was expecting that I would see a border around it, which is the default. Because that was going to be my main point, is that you want to get rid of that border, right? But it's not there. So I don't know. Anyway, the next thing that I want to do is to actually have that search icon, which is just called search, I think, right? This one. So we can copy that as well. And that's going to be part of our document here. So we have our little search icon here. So we have search and then, oh yeah, and don't forget the S here. Right. Now we want to style it a bit differently, of course. So first of all, what we want to do for our search element, and this is the main thing that I wanted to show, is that both the, you can see it here in the screenshot, both the element itself and the icon need to be, there need to be a border around it, or there needs to be a border around it. So it's the search icon, or the search element itself, the group, that actually gets the border. So here we're going to say border 1 pix solid, and actually have a style for that. So if you look at the text document, search border is here, DED, so that's the one I want. So that's my little border here. Let's make it a bit thicker here, right? And then it's mainly tweaking, right? So we're going to give that some padding. We can do 10 pixels at the top and at the bottom, and 20 pixels left, right. So it looks a bit better already. I don't see my icon now. Oh, there it is. And then because we want one element to appear on one side and the other on the other side, we use display flex. Just as we did before, we justify content space between and a align items of center. And they should be nicely aligned. Again, it's loading a little bit the fonts here. At least I hope so. Right, that looks good. And then I have a border radius, and don't stress too much that it's not exactly the same radius as the original one, but this starts to look okay. Maybe give it a bit of margin as well, so it doesn't take up all the space here. Cool. And then I don't understand why this search itself doesn't have a border, but normally what I would expect, and maybe this is a browser thing, the border should be none for the actual search. And then also because also we don't want the background to show up, and we want the font to be inherited. So the font by default uses a very different font, so we don't want that one. Maybe the outline needs to be none as well, so we don't see this little highlighted thing. Okay, that looks good. So that's my search. Cool. Time for our tabs. And you see, just like before, I'm just going through it one by one, right? So the tabs is just a div called tabs, and then all the tabs are basically links, right? So we have a tabs tab. It's not going anywhere, and the first one is active, so I'm going to add a second class, tabs underscore tab dash dash active. Again, don't stress out about this, it's not important. This is the way that I like to write them, but you can name them whatever you want. And this one is fruits. I'm going to copy this line and paste it a couple of times. For the second line, I don't want an active tab, and also not for the third line. This one's called vegetables, and the last one is called nuts and seeds. Right, let's see. That looks good. Or at least the text is there. The rest is just styling. So I'm going to copy this. This is just for me, right? And just to make it clear that I want something here. So tabs. And the idea with the tabs is again that we use display flex. Now we don't want to use space between. We just want them all on the left side. And then for each individual tab, basically we just wanted a lot of padding, right? And this is just something to feel around, to play with a little bit, so that you see, oh, this looks okay, or maybe not. We don't want any text decoration. We want the color. We actually set the color here for the active tab. That's a different color. We first are starting the inactive tabs, and then we're going to say tabs, tab. So the active tab gets a different color, right? It gets this color. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, so it's a bit different from the color, but the main thing is here the border. And the trick here, and we've done this before, is that we are going to give this one a border that's transparent. And then for the active tab, we're going to say border bottom color is a different color. And here for the color, I didn't actually write it in the list, but I'm just going to use orange here. Right, something like this. And you see in the screenshot it goes right up the edge here. And that's because this body still has this little margin here. So I'm going to turn this margin off by setting body margin to 0. And that's going to turn that margin off, and it now fits nicely with this link. And we're done for the tabs. Oh yeah, just maybe one small tweak here is that we can also give a font weight of bold for the active tab. Again, don't stress out, that's not working for you. Okay, let's focus on this element here. So here, again, you can choose. I'm just going to use the main tag to indicate that this is the main part of my page. And then inside of that main tag, I'm also going to write a different tag, products, because these will be my my list of products. Right, and for each product, I basically have a lot of stuff. And this, again, looks scary, but it's a lot of these things we already saw, right? So there's a couple of elements here. There's an image here, there's a price, there's the name of the product or the title, there's the country of origin, so where it came from, and then there's this little plus icon. And this might be a strange one, but this is actually using position absolute like we showed before with just other borders. So let's do it one by one. We're going to add a product. So div class product. This is a group that basically identifies this whole block here. And within that group, we're going to add an image. The source of that image is going to be, in our case, the orange. Again, we are auto-completing here because it fills that in. We're going to give an alt tag for people who can't see it. And then we're also going to give it a class. So we're going to say class product image. Right. So that's my image of my product. And this product block is going to be copied and pasted around and then changed for the pear and the kiwi and the lemon. Next thing is the title. So I'm going to use, the price is the next thing on the list. So I'm going to use just a paragraph tag, p dot product underscore price. And here the price is like €2.49. Okay, we'll just add everything and then we'll do the styling. The next thing is the product title. Again, you could use a paragraph. I'm just going to use H2. Not sure why, it doesn't really make a difference, but that's just how I'm going to do it. Sometimes people like to use lists for this as well, which is also fine. And then we are going to use product origin. So what's the country of origin? So oranges come from Spain. And then we have this sneaky little button. So the plus icon is actually an icon from Font Awesome. It's called plus. So this one or another one, or with the smile even if you want. So it's just called plus, right? So we can copy that. But how do we put it on the page? Well, the idea is that the product will be position relative and then the button will be position absolute move to the top and then to the right. So this will be a link because we want to be able to click it. We're going to give it a class product, let's call it add for the add button, and then add like this, and then inside there's the icon itself. Right, and that's one product, so let's go look at it. You see it's really big, but that's supposed to be there because we didn't specify anything else. So we have an orange, we have a price, and then we have a little plus icon here. So next up, either we do the styling, or let's do another product because we want to be able to see them side by side. So I'm just going to copy and paste this block, paste it here, and then the next thing is going to be, oh, it says pear, but it's actually bananas. Beautiful. If I make mistakes, you don't really have to copy them, that's not necessary. Excuse me. So, and these are obviously bananas. Bananas come from, let's say, Argentina, and they also have this plus icon. And let's see, let's do the other two as well. So we copy this twice. These are kiwis. If these things are not exact, like this is not something that I'm looking at all. It's more about the structure of your document and being able to understand how you think through the whole process. Okay, so we have a big bunch of HTML code, and now it's time to style this. So we're going to copy this thing here. First, I have this main element. The only thing that I want to do with the main element is to give it a background. I actually specified a background color here, so that's this one. And then maybe some padding as well, because as you can see, it doesn't. There's some little bit of room here. So 40 pixels top and bottom, and then to the side there's also a little bit of room, so let's give that 15 pixels or something. And then maybe, I'm not sure if you can tell, yeah, so this looks good. As you can tell, there's a little bit of shadow here, and use box shadow here, and I'm going to use it on a couple of places. Again, don't stress out, these are details, but it's kind of nice. We use inset, so the shadow goes inside of the element instead of outside of the element. And then I give it a little bit of shadow. This is just a black shadow with 10% opacity, so that gives it a little bit of shadow here. None of these things have to be correct, obviously. And then it's time for the products. So what's the trick here? Well, the main thing is, of course, that we're using display grid, right? There are a grid of products. And so we're going to specify how many columns we want. So we want to repeat 2 columns, and they take up all the space. So each column has 1 fractional unit. So basically give me all the space that you have. So we're dividing all the space by 2 elements. And then because we don't want the elements right next to each other, we're also going to give a bit of grid gap. And this we have to tweak a little bit. I know now that the correct value is 12 pixels, or that's the value that I used. But again, if you put 10 there or 20 there, I don't really care. And now it's time to style one individual product. And the product itself has a background color. So again, telling from here, we see that it's BEB. So that's the most important thing, I think, for now, to make sure that they stand out from the background. So already we're kind of close to the original one, right? We're not there yet. The plus is a bit in a weird spot, but this is mostly styling, right? That's the point. So I'm going to give it a border radius to make them round, 20 pixels. Right, and then just padding. So at the top there's a lot of padding because we need it for the extra plus button. At the bottom we have a bit of less padding. Left and right we want to have like 15 pixels of padding, maybe. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and now it's time to do the individual elements. So the first one is the image, so we call it product __ image. That image, actually there's not that much to do. There's one subtle thing that I just want to show you as a little trick, which is that we can add a little what's called an image filter, and these can be used to make them black and white or change the saturation. But there's also one called drop shadow. That's the one I want to use. So there's no drop shadow in the x direction, or the x direction doesn't move. This is the y direction, so it goes 5 pixels down a little bit. The shadow itself is a blur of 10 pixels, and then also use this RGBA value, and that gives us this little shadow below here, as you can see. Okay. Now the price. The price is a bit bigger, so I'm going to change the font size to 1.5 rems. It's white, so we're going to set the color to white. Maybe make it bold. Right, and then also I use a little text shadow here, 1 pixel, to give a little bit of shadow to the product here. As you can see, there's lots of margins. That's because the paragraph by default has huge margins. So we're going to turn these off, and then only turn on the margin on the bottom, and we can tweak that later if you want. Okay, and then here you see it's quite close to the product itself, so we're going to give the product image itself also margin bottom. Let's say 2 rems, right? And then more styling, the title. Use a font size. It's a bit bigger. Oops. Also 0 margin except for at the bottom. So this is a different way of writing this thing, right? Both are correct, but this is going from the top, then the right margin, then the bottom margin, and then the left margin, so they're clockwise, starting from the top. And then the color for that, let's look if we see a color here, is 474, so hashtag 474 for the color. Cool, looking good. The origin also has some color, has font size, it's a bit smaller than the original one. No margins, again they're paragraphs. And then the color here is 676, like this. That looks pretty nice. And then of course the plus thing here. So to do that, and that's also what I want to show, is that we are going to use position absolute. But if you remember, if we just use position absolute here, saying, well, we want them to be in the top right, then what's going to happen is that they're here, this icon is here, because the position absolute moves to the first element that's set to position relative, or if none of them are set to position relative, it's going to move all the way up to the top of the document. So we have to specify absolute in regards to what, and that's because our product here, our little group here, that needs to be position relative. Right, so now they're here at the top, and it sort of starts to look like this. The rest is mostly styling, and the styling here is that we are going to give it some padding, 10 pixels. Let's go back, that looks good. And if it just looks like this, I'm already happy. The rest is detail, so I'm going to add a white, a little bit of a white color with just 0.5, so 50%, like this. And then I'm going to do a border radius, but not over the whole thing, because if I do a border radius of 20 pixels, the whole thing is going to be round, which is okay, but I want it a bit different, and I can be very specific here. I can say, well, the border top right radius, which is this radius here, that needs to be 20 pixels. And you'll see if I turn it off, it's very, very subtle, but you actually see the original border here. And then we do that the same thing for the bottom left radius as well. So that's also going to be 20 pixels. Right now it looks good except for its own color, and here we're just going to use inherit, so just use the base color of the document, and voila, that's our products. And there's one final thing, and that's super quick, is just the footer. So we're done here. We're going to make a footer, and this footer is very typical right now. So there's two elements here. So we're again using display flex with justify content space between, and we just give them names. So I have footer, the copyright notice, copyright, which is copyright, and you can copy and paste this icon, the copyright icon, from somewhere else, or you can type it like this, copy 2019, or you can leave it off, I don't care. And then you have a nav element, let's call it footer nav. You can also use a div if you want, with one link that's about and another link that's privacy. So looking at it, it looks like this, which is perfect. This is what we want. I mean, this is what I expect, I should say. So let's do footer here. Let's copy and paste this element, footer, and here we're going to say, well, do add a footer tag, change the background color, again going to text edit. You see the background color is set here. Do we have text color? Yes, so the color of the text is just called color. We wanted to do display flex, justify content space between, and align items to the center. All right, and styling. So maybe set a font size of 0.8 rem, so it's a bit smaller. And then say maybe some padding here inside of the element, so 20 pixels all around. Does that work? Yeah, looks fine. Our copyright is a paragraph, and paragraphs are annoying because they always have this little margin around them, so we're just going to give them margin 0. And then our footer nav, so navigation, we actually don't have to do anything here. They're just not next to each other, which is fine, which is the way that we want them. We could use display flex, but they'll be next to each other anyway. So all we want to do is not the nav itself, but the links inside of the nav we want to style. So we do footer nav A, so links inside of that navigation, and there we can say text decoration none, use the color from the document, or use the color from the footer in this case. That looks good. And maybe give a little bit of margin in between these elements. So if we say margin right, that's actually going to shift them a little bit away from this side, so which is kind of weird. So I'm going to give the margin left 0.5 rems, and now the margin moves to that side, which is nice because then the margin space here and here is the same. And I think that's it. So we made our whole page here. It's responsive in the sense that we can actually move it a little bit, but as you can see, it doesn't really work on desktop. But also that's not the point. That's not something that I'm going to ask. But starting from a screenshot, this is basically how you break it down. So you can take the existing styles of that document. That's something that I'll provide. Then you can work with the colors and the fonts that I provide in the other styling document. And then also, if you get stuck, you can just ask, because that's the point, or look up because it's an open book exam, right? Okay, so I think that's it. I'll see you next week, and good luck.